Hello and welcome to another edition of the Forza Napoli podcast. I am your host, Joe Fischetti. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. We are in the March international break, which is normally our most hated time of the season. All of the international breaks suck pretty badly. This one's been a little bit better because Italy are playing in their World Cup playoffs. They won their first game, their semifinal against Northern Ireland. There are four Napoli players called up to the Italian national team for this international break. But Meret, I don't think Spinazzola played. Buongiorno didn't play in the semifinals. So really, it's only Napoli legend Matteo Politano that is featuring, and Italy will play in the finals on Tuesday. But that is not what we are here to talk about today. We are going to talk about our club, which is Napoli. We're going to talk about the recent run of form and whether that puts them in contention for the Scudetto. We'll also talk about Inter struggling a little bit, and then we'll close the podcast with a little bit of a discussion on the Romeo Lukaku situation and the drama surrounding him. And I am joined by another Napoli legend to help me out with this episode. He is the vice president of the Tri-State Napoli Club, Peter Scala. Welcome back.
Oh, you give me too much praise, Joe. Speak too much praise.
Well, it is a pleasure. It's been a while again. I'm sorry, everyone. I know it's been a few weeks between pods lately, and I will try to get the pods a bit more frequently again. I'm already working on something for the Milan game, so hopefully the next one won't be almost a month later. But I do want to talk about maybe it's good that I haven't been podcasting actually, because Napoli have won four matches in a row. It started with who was it? Hellas Verona, I guess. I'm gonna switch to this here. That was a 2-1 victory in Verona. Romelu Lukaku with a late winner in that match. And then we had the 2-1 victory over Torino, followed by, or was it the Lecce match that Lukaku scored the winner? And I'm getting myself confused now. Feels like it was so long ago.
I think it was the Lecce match.
Maybe it was, I think so. So he scored the late winner there. Yeah, the Verona match was, I think, a bit more comfortable. And then, we went behind in that match, and then we came back and it was a very bad first half, and then we had a really good second half. And then most recently, a very comfortable 1-0 victory, our first clean sheet in forever over Cagliari. So, Pete, 4 straight wins over the course of the last month. And as a result, Napoli find themselves only 7 points back of Inter. Before we talk about a potential Scudetto run, I just want to get your thoughts on the recent return to form. And, is that because the team is getting healthier? Is that because of playing only once a week? Maybe it's a combination of all these things. But generally, what are your thoughts on Napoli's recent form?
Well, I have two minds on it. I don't know if I want to go with the more positive or the more negative, because the negative in me, or listening to my father or any of the Napoli old heads at this point, Napoli haven't, while they're still winning, they have not necessarily been playing particularly well, or if they are playing well, it's a tale of two halves. However, counterpoint to that, good teams find a way to win. Last year, Napoli won the Scudetto on not playing particularly well, but still getting 3 points. I tend to lean more on the Napoli are getting the good results side. We are getting healthy, like you mentioned. With that, we're getting new players back into the squad, and they never really had a chance to form chemistry. Kevin De Bruyne played 5 games for Napoli before he got hurt, so he's still brand new to the squad, even though he's been here for the whole year. So it's at the perfect time. You're only playing 1 game a week. You're getting healthy. It seems like, knock on wood, the days of having just 2 people in central midfield are over. And now we actually get to have discussions and debates about who should we start in our starting 11 instead of, oh God, do we have enough people to start?
Yeah, that's really refreshing. And because that's what we thought the discussion was going to be at the start of this season, right? We felt like we brought in all these players with the intent of competing in multiple competitions, and there was debate at the start of the season about who we should play. We talked about whether the four-man midfield was hurting Scott McTominay because he wasn't scoring as much. Maybe that was a bit of a sacrifice for the betterment of the team overall. And then players started dropping like flies, even really before the season started with Lukaku, and then one after another, including De Bruyne. But I do think he, in these past four matches, has been a bright spot for Napoli. And he actually looks in much better physical condition now than he did at the start of the season, even though he had been through the Conte training camp. And maybe that was the reason, because Conte is known for having these insanely intense spring kind of ritiri or fall, I guess, ritiri, summer, whatever you want to call it, before the season, preseason ritiri. And he's also known for his team starting out a little bit slow. And one of the reasons for that is because they are so exhausted from such an intense training or preparation that it takes a little bit of time for them to kind of refine their legs. And De Bruyne got hurt before he really could, and then he went off to Belgium, did his own specialized training, had the surgery there first, and specialized kind of recovery, and he's come back looking really, really strong. It's again, I feel like I'm kind of reliving the beginning of the season. He's almost too good for his teammates in a way, because he has this insane vision that he sees passes that his teammates don't. So he'll play the ball and it'll be a perfect pass. And sometimes the players will see the same pass and get there, but other times it's like their minds can't even think that well, or that they don't have that insanely high football IQ. But I think slowly that chemistry is starting to build. McTominay returning has been a big help. He scored the match winner in that Cagliari game. It was a bit of a scrappy goal, but still it was an important one. It ended up being the match winner. And also I think the changes that Conte made kind of throughout the season that led us to this current formation actually works better than what he was trying to do at the beginning of the season, which was, I think it was a 3-4-3 with two wingers, and now we're playing more of a 3-4-2-1, and McTominay can play a little bit higher up, and so he's still being able to play in a more attacking role, while KDB can be more of a playmaker, and they can play off each other and drop. And whereas Politano, instead of playing as a winger, is playing more as a wing back, which we know is probably a better position for him to play in with his work ethic. He's another guy that I think was dealing with some, even though he was playing more, I think he was dealing with some injuries and seems to be recovering as well. And then we have guys like Gilmore who stepped up when we needed him to, with Lobotka hurt. We have Anguissa coming back. Hasn't looked his best yet, but ultimately you prefer to have Anguissa in the lineup. So, all of these guys, it's giving us that good problem of having to decide who we can play. And it's giving us the ability to make changes if whatever we're doing is not working. Because if you look at that, I think it was the Lecce match. I'm getting these matches all mixed up. It's all a big blur over the last 4 weeks. But I believe it was the Lecce match where we actually had a pretty bad first half, and then we came back strong and made a couple of changes. We brought in, we took off Anguissa at halftime, and we brought in De Bruyne and McTominay, and totally changed the feel of the match, and we end up winning that match. So I think I'm rambling a little bit here, but all of this is to say, I think with the players returning to health, that has certainly helped us refine our form and get some results here. I want to get your thoughts specifically on the Cagliari match, because I think that one was probably the more impressive out of the last four. I feel like the previous three were still a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, there was still, Napoli still really struggled to put away the second goal, which thankfully it didn't cost them in this game. But if we look ahead to our next game against Milan, I don't think we necessarily can be afforded that same opportunity. With that being said, playing away, it's a very hostile place to play. They do not like us, and we scrounged a very scrappy goal, like you said, and we found a way to win. There's 18 attempts, but only 4 on target. I think that is my biggest disappointment. Um, it's great to have possession. It's great to take shots, but if you like, I know we won, and I'm not going to sit here and complain too much about a win, especially away in a very hostile environment. But I feel like we play a little bit lesser teams in these last 4 games, and I've seen Conti teams do it, and I have confidence in this one that they will play up to the bigger team like Milan, and the Como is also going to be tough towns. But I trust Napoli. I do think that, like I mentioned earlier, there is a little bit of continuity with these players need to play together because they've all been hurt, and I think they'll get there and we'll be fine. I do like some of the things I've seen, like possession. Just wish we'd get more on target shots. However, there are some players that are playing fantastic. For me, I feel like I'm in love with Allison. I think he's so good. I hope Napoli buy him. In a weird way, some of the injuries have kind of been a blessing in disguise. If the team stays healthy, we don't have Hoyland. We're stuck with Luka. Vergara, the only reason why they kept him is because they had nobody else. He's been great. Um, you know, Allison Santos again too. He's changed 2 games, single-handedly by himself. So, with the players that have been there that have been playing well, and the players that are like Kevin De Bruyne, world-class talent, Zambo and Gisa, maybe our most I don't know, I guess from the world's perspective, underrated because nobody really talks about him but Napoli fans, but we understand his importance. With these guys all coming together, and Inter are they're not playing in form. I don't want to say the words, but for the video people.
I'm going to hold off on saying the words for a second because I do want to make a couple of comments, and because I tend to agree with you. I think like nobody's going to complain about winning 4 matches in a row, but I agree, not exactly the strongest competition. Mind you, everyone has to play every team, right? So that could also be because we had a run where we had a lot of difficult matches in a short stretch, and that allowed Inter to pull away a little bit, and now we're kind of regaining that ground as they play some tougher competition. But in those 4 matches, I did look it up. Lukaku did score the winner in the Verona match, and then it was like the 96th minute. So we were like this close to to drawing against Verona, which is another team that really hates us. All 4 matches were 1-goal victories. That I mentioned that Lecce match where we had just a horrible first half and thankfully had a really strong second half. So I don't think we should necessarily get too carried away with these recent results. The other thing is, I mean, what I really liked about the Cagliari match, and what's maybe given me a little bit of more optimism, is that was a more dominant performance, right? Like, despite the shots on target that you mentioned, okay, 4 hit the target, but 18 shot attempts. The XG was something like 1.77 to 0.35. Cagliari really did not look threatening in this match. They maybe had 1 chance during the match and the odd kind of half chance very late in the match. But it's still very concerning when you have only a 1-goal lead. It doesn't take much. Conte says it all the time. All it takes is a weird bounce or a corner kick, set piece type of thing, and you throw points away. So the kind of 2 big concerns have been, up until that match, we hadn't recorded a clean sheet in, I think, since, I don't know, January, something like that, which is very unlike a Conte team. And defensively, we were just conceding too much. Like well, I guess that's the same thing, not getting any clean sheets and conceding too much, but not scoring enough. I mean, I can't remember the last time we scored more than 2 goals in a match. So I don't want to get too carried away. That being said, if we look at the table, 2 rounds, or sorry, after match day 26, we were 14 points behind Inter, and I know this is a little bit difficult to see, but full screen, whatever. Milan still 4 points clear of us. Fast forward to the table now after match day 30, we're only 1 point back of Milan in second. And like I said, only 7 points behind Inter. And so that does make me ask the question, and I'll say it now, are Napoli legitimate Scudetto contenders again with 8 matches left to play?
They are contenders. We saw it happen last year. Inter had they pulled the New York Jets. It was theirs to win, and they snatched what the phrase they lost it to us.
They snatched defeat from the hands of victory. Is that
there? We go. Thank you, Joe. But it could happen again. I mean, is it going to happen? Probably not. But to steal a Mets phrase, you got to believe. I do think they are scared. I think don't forget this. Inter is a first-year coach. He does not have the experience that Conte has. They are starting to get hurt while we are starting to get healthy. Yes, we have Milan ahead of us, and all of these words could mean absolutely nothing if Milan beat us. But I don't think they're going to beat us. I truly believe, and Joe, we've seen it. We've seen it a few times over the years, these past couple of years. When the city's always behind the team, but when the city really puts their mind to it and really gets behind the team, the Maradona is an impossible place to play for anybody. And I truly believe that the fans know that the players need them to have their back. And I know there's issues with the ultras and ADL and all that stuff, but I think the fans are going to put all that aside, because this is if you have want any shot to win, you got to win this game. On the other side, Inter are playing Roma, who have been playing pretty well. They are also fighting for top 4. So it's time to put your big boy pants on. The thought of Napoli winning two Scudettos in back-to-back years, I never thought this would ever be possible. And I think it's going to happen.
I didn't catch that. What was that?
I don't want to say it again.
Yeah, no. No, I agree with you. I mean, odds-wise, if you look at the sports books, we're still pretty slim chances. Inter are minus 500, Milan plus 500. I think we're plus 700 or thereabouts, depending on what book you're using, which puts us at that makes Inter 90% favorites to win the league. But, a couple rounds ago, they were something like 99% favorites. And, one thing that a few people have posted on social media is the interview that McTominay did. I think it was after the last match against Inter, if I'm not mistaken, where he talked about how, what we were doing without all these players, Gilmore and Gisa, De Bruyne. He rattled off a few, and he said, imagine if Inter were playing without Lautaro and Barella and Hakan and and he actually got a little bit of flack for that, and people went after him a little bit to kind of say oh, that's a loser mentality or whatever. Well, all Inter had to lose was Lautaro, and suddenly the team looks like it's falling apart. So McTominay was actually right about that. And likewise, he didn't mention Milan, but if you look at their record, without what's his name, the midfielder there in the lineup, Rabiot, it's a similar story. When he's not in the lineup, their average points per match is significantly lower than when he is in the lineup. And I think he got a winner for them recently as well. So, I think McTominay was onto something there. And then to your point, it might really just come down to this next round. So, one thing about not doing a pod in a little while is I can spend a little bit more time on graphics. So what I did look at was the different kind of combinations if Inter win, draw, or lose against Roma, and if Napoli win, draw, or lose against Milan. And I think if you look at the green boxes, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, if you're listening, it's just a 9x9 kind of, a 3x3 kind of grid. If we win and Inter don't win, we're at worst 6 points behind in the case where we draw and Inter lose, and at best we're 4 points behind in the case where we win and Inter lose. And I think in those cases we are very much contenders. We still need some help, of course, but Inter have a bit more of a difficult schedule than we do. So I think it's realistic in those cases. If we get the same result as Inter, so if we win and they win, or if we draw and they draw, or we lose and they lose, obviously we stay 7 points behind just with one fewer matches left to play. I'm not so sure. I guess it's still possible, but in that case, we need them to drop points in 3 out of the last 7 matches. I think that is a lot to ask for. And if we drop further points, so if Inter get a better result than us in this next round, I think we can say pretty definitively we're too far behind, because at best we're 8 points behind if we lose and Inter draw, and at worst we're 10 points behind if we lose and Inter win. So I think this upcoming round after the international break will give us a lot more clarity. And I'm not so sure if this was a good thing for us or not to have this international break. We kind of lose the momentum, but we also get more time to prepare. And again, we know Conte, when he has time to prepare, he's probably the best manager in the world at getting ready for a big match. Whereas, to your point, Kivu is a rookie. Both teams have players off on international duty, so I think that kind of evens out. And then you also mentioned the Maradona, and one of the big positives for Napoli this season, despite all of the injuries and all the difficulties and failure in Champions League, is the Maradona has been a fortress. We still have this ridiculous record, at least in Serie A, where we haven't lost at the Maradona since like December of 2024. I mean, a draw wouldn't be a good result either, but I do, think that it's more. Obviously, it's better for us to be at home, and a win against Milan is certainly not out of the question.
Can I mention one thing for all my superstitious Napolitan out there?
Yeah, of course.
Joe, do you know who Inter are playing in 2 of the last 3 games of the season?
I looked at it a little while ago. Is it Lazio and Bologna?
It sure is.
Yeah.
And who are the 2 teams that helped us win the Scudetto last year?
That is a great observation. Although I think we play both of those teams in our final.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. Shh. It's okay. They'll help us again.
Yeah, no, that is an excellent observation. And look, like at this point, I mean, I don't think we have any matches left against. I have to double check against the teams that are fighting for survival. Mind you, there's a whole bunch of them that are still kind of fighting for survival. But
I mean, technically Pisa, but they're
yeah. I mean,
Como kind of all but over
destroyed Pisa. So mind you, Como's kind of like, other than us, they're probably the most informed team, maybe even more informed than we are with the way they play. But yeah, no, that helps. We'll take it. Any difficult matches during a difficult period for Inter. We'll see if Lautaro comes back. I think he's been in the lineup, so I suspect he'll be ready to go soon. But yeah, the other thing that, of course, we need to, it's out of our control, but there's also the Marotta effect. So he's giving he's giving speeches at the league, a second speech at the league headquarters this season. So, we can't control that, unfortunately. I do want to touch on Interisti's kind of insecurities of late. I mentioned how, people were critical of McTominay for mentioning how would they play if they had the same number of injuries or the equivalent injuries? And sure enough, Inter start dropping points, and we start seeing all kinds of complaints about calls that should have gone their way. There was this one was against Milan in the derby where they wanted a handball on which player was it? I wrote it down here. I can't remember the midfielder that wasn't given. They wanted. There were a couple instances in the Atalanta match where they felt like they should have been awarded a penalty kick or a goal should have been ruled out for a foul, one on Dumfries, and then the one that I think was probably the only legitimate one was the foul on Fratesi in the same match, late in the match, that they were not awarded a penalty for. And most recently against Fiorentina, I think it was Pongracic that they wanted a handball for late in that match as well. This doesn't seem like the winning mentality from the fan base that they kind of boast about. And look, we're Napoli fans, so we have our own bias. But genuinely, if I'm being objective and looking at these situations, I think the only legitimate claim is the Fratesi one. I think the Milan game, I think that hand is in a natural position. The Fiorentina game, that's in a natural position. And there was a slight deflection. Like when you're these images are not even great to look at because if you're watching on YouTube, freeze frames don't tell the whole story, and people's arms move when they're running, so it can still be a natural position. I don't know when the interpretation changed to like if your arm is not touching the side of your body, then you're making yourself unnaturally bigger. I think that's more of a fan interpretation that's ridiculous to me, but I legitimately believe that maybe they could have gotten 2 more points, not like that they've been, the league is trying to make it competitive again, or all these crazy claims that we're seeing from that fan base.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly shocking considering earlier in the season when Napoli fans were making similar claims, they were, oh, you guys are a bunch of crybabies. This is ridiculous. Considering, granted, it was hilarious that it happened to Juventus. If that had happened to anybody, let it be them. But what happened at Inter-Juventus, like, you guys kind of deserve it. Karma's coming back around. But what this really screams of is a fan base that is worried. They are terrified of doing the same thing 2 years in a row. And I know this because, I run a mildly successful Twitter account. Not my own personally, the club, mine's terrible. And every once in a while, I'll take little jabs at Inter fans or the team. And every time I do, I see everyone saves them because you get a little notification. So I'm seeing that you're. I see you, Inter fans. You're waiting for Napoli to slip up so you can attack. I see it.
Or they're coming to shove it in your face if they win the league.
Yeah, it's just a little sad, honestly. Like, you guys were up like 14 points or something, and you made it competitive at the end. Like, don't be mad at me. Be mad at your bad team playing bad. Be mad that Morata's checks are bouncing, I guess. Like, he has to go in person to pay it, apparently. Cash, they don't take checks. It's all cash now. So it's a little sad to see, like, you guys, when Napoli does it, oh, it's a small club mentality. Oh, like, you guys will never be a big club. It's kind of what you're doing now. And even if we're going to talk about big clubs, you are the smallest of the big three. So, like, I'm just going to say that. I never thought I'd say this, but Inter fans are really kind of starting to catch up to Juventus fans. Like
I asked our buddy people this question on our last podcast: are Interisti or is Inter the new Juventus? Because look, anytime there is a team that, not to say that Inter is dominating like Juve did for that 9-year run, but I think most people would agree that they've been the best team, talent-wise over the last 5-6 seasons. I think this would be their third in the last 5 or 6, 2 for us, 1 for Milan. So anytime a team is kind of at the top, they are going to catch more hate from the other fan bases. But I agree with you. And what I think what frustrates me, and you kind of alluded to it about how people came at us when we were complaining about this decision, is that, and every fan base can probably put together the same kind of argument, but we've had a number of decisions not go our way. Some people maybe exaggerate that, we're being screwed, the league doesn't want us to win, but you can't deny that at the very least, we've been on the negative side of a number of kind of 50-50 calls. This was from the Juventus game with sort of double foul on Højlund and Vergara in the area. Højlund, by the way, there's a different rule book for him, the way he's treated. Here was the one against Roma where he appeared to be fouled by Ndika and probably should have been a red card, and I don't even think they gave a free kick on that one. The one where Atalanta, we get a goal taken away for what did not appear to be a foul by Højlund and might have actually been a foul by Hien. We had the Verona match where Buongiorno is fouled and instead VAR gives a penalty kick for a handball while he's being fouled. In the same match, Højlund gets a goal taken away for a ball that hits his chest. And so, you take and Mazzocchi being called offside by like a fragment of his shoulder that I don't know how anyone can look at this and say definitively that he was in an offside position. I know we use the technology, but still that is just far too close. So I look at all of these situations, and if you do the math, I think in terms of how many points we were robbed, I think actually like at worst, even if you give some of these, you sort of agree with some of these decisions, we should be 6 points back of Inter. So only basically they should have gotten 2 points, but we should have gotten 3. And I think at best, we should only be 2 points back of Inter. And then, of course, we're in contention if we're only 2 points behind them with 8 rounds to play. So, I have zero sympathy. I'm enjoying also kind of going after Marotta a lot, and I'm loving your post on the Tri-State account, which make me laugh like crazy all the time. And it's all in good fun. And like we're kind of playing with house money is kind of how I feel. It's like, what do we have to lose? We can make fun of you guys, and it's not like we kind of gave up on our Scudetto hopes 4 or 5 rounds ago. So what are you going to say? Oh, we won the Scudetto. Yeah, everyone's kind of expecting that. So we're at least having our fun with it.
Well, Joe, listen, all those images you showed are cool, but they're clearly AI because according to Inter fans, nothing bad has ever, like Napoli have just gotten every call ever, and Inter constantly gets screwed all the time. Inter have never got a call in their favor. That's never happened in the history of soccer.
Well, for any Interisti that happen to be listening to this, I'll have you know that I am far too old to be able to make cool AI images like Pete and some of the younger fans might be able to do. So these are not.
Listen, I don't do AI. My all the images I make are just purely on Canva and with just lots of stupidity. My content isn't good enough to kill trees over. It's
yeah, I mean, I just steal things from people's posts on X and hope my videos don't get taken down. But okay, so let's close the pod with this Lukaku situation because this has been a whole crazy thing happening. I'll come back to us on the screen here. Just to kind of recap how this all played out. We all know Lukaku got injured in like the last friendly before the season started. Serious muscle tear, misses the entire first half of the season. He returned technically in January during the Supercoppa, but it looked like he was more there just as emotional support, almost like as another coach just on the field, because I don't think, unless we were really desperate, I don't think he was coming into any of those matches. Turns out we end up not needing him. We win the Supercoppa, slowly working himself back to form, gets some minutes here and there, but looks still like he's struggling fitness-wise. He did score that match winner off the bench against Hellas Verona, a very emotional game, which we'll get to in a second, both for the team, but specifically for Lukaku. And then we get to this international break. He actually didn't play not a single minute after scoring that winner, by the way. We get to this international break. He's called up to the Belgian national team by Rudy Garcia for their 2 friendlies in the United States. But I guess the team meets up in Belgium first, and then they fly out together as a team, which makes sense. So he goes there, and within I don't know if they do physicals at the international training camps or if this was just maybe even premeditated. I don't know. But he goes there, and I guess collectively with the coaching staff of the Belgian national team decide that he should not make the trip to the United States, which De Bruyne did make, and instead he should focus on his fitness and train during this international break. So that's all fine. Nothing wrong with any of that. The controversy is that without the permission of Napoli, he decides that he is going to stay in Antwerp and train personally there. And as you would imagine, the media has an absolute feast with this. There's all kinds of speculation. Potentially he's going to miss seems likely that he's going to miss the Milan match, could miss the Parma match as well. Speculation that this will be his last season for Napoli. The club's going to fine him, and maybe he goes next season. He's always wanted, he's talked about wanting to return to his first professional club, which was Anderlecht. There's rumors maybe he goes to Saudi. So this thing has just exploded, and naturally, so during an international break, the media is kind of starving for stories, and he put it on a platter for them. What do you make of this entire Lukaku situation?
So I'll be 100% honest. I do think it's a lot of nothing. I do think it's a lot of the media, making something out of nothing. But if I'm 100% honest with you, number one, I blame Rudy Garcia, just because it's always his fault.
I said the exact same thing, actually. I said this to a number of people. This has Rudy Garcia written all over it. He's trying to... I wouldn't be shocked if... I'm sorry for cutting you off, but you got me excited. I wouldn't be shocked if one thing we know about Rudy Garcia, just from the fact that he got the job at Napoli, which he had no business getting, and his wife is pretty attractive too. I'll just say that. But this guy, this guy must be the sweetest talker in the world. Like, he can, sell ice to, I don't know, an Eskimo, because he got that job at Napoli when he was literally doing nothing and didn't have any success in his previous job. So it honestly would not shock me if he somehow convinced Lukaku that he needs to stay in Belgium and train. And an easy argument to make is, hey, your buddy Kevin did that for half a season, and look how fit he is now. And he had a surgery, so why don't you do that? And in, kind of the back of his mind, it's Napoli's the club that fired me, and they blamed me for having their worst season after winning the Scudetto and all this stuff. I know this is pure speculation. It's way out there, but I had the exact same thought. So I'm glad it wasn't just me.
No, it was definitely a thought. Another thing is, he's all like, if he was healthy at this point, he'd be with them in the United States. So it's like, does it really matter if he's back in Napoli right now? Not really. Considering Conte's not even in Napoli right now. He took the week off as well. Even if Conte was supposed to go back to Naples, if Lukaku was supposed to go back to Naples and didn't, this man has had a hell of a year. He lost his father recently. He just came back. He had a major injury, missed most of the year. Let's be honest, he is on the later side of his career. There's already a player in Napoli who plays the same position at him who is in form. I'm going to give him a lot of grace. Even if he is wrong in the situation, I'm going to give him a lot of grace. Like, I'm sure his mental health right now is at an all-time low. He might potentially be hurt again. all the things I just mentioned, like even notwithstanding the fact that without Lukaku, we don't win a Scudetto last year. Like all the stuff he's been going through in his personal life, like and he's back at home. Just I I don't think it's a big deal. I really hope it's not a big deal. Personally, considering Napoli hasn't tweeted out one of those statements they like to tweet out whenever anything happens in the media, kind of leads me to believe it's a lot of nothing. So, which I prefer that over ADL saying whatever's on his mind. So I'll take those. But we haven't got any of that. So I don't think it's a big deal. We'll kind of see what happens in the Milan game. It's just kind of a waiting game. And I don't think it's fair to Lukaku to speculate too much on that in the negative light because we don't know. And he's done since he's been in Napoli, he's been a model citizen. So he definitely deserves the benefit of the doubt.
Well, that's why this threw me so off, because despite not playing all year, he was such a good team player, especially since he came back. Like, obviously, when he was away from the team, he couldn't help much. But the fact that he came back for the Supercopa and he was there and helping his teammates in whatever way he could, like it felt like he was like a true leader of this team. So it was almost out of character that he made this decision without consulting with the club. That being said, having spoken to fans of other clubs that Lukaku has played for, like Inter and United, he also, this kind of is in character. He's done kind of crazy things like this in the past. So I think none of us would have expected him to do this to Conte because they have such a good relationship. And again, who knows what to believe from the media, but it sounds like no one at Napoli was thrilled or happy about this. That Laurentiis was not happy. They're probably going to find him, which I think is the right thing to do. Not because like you want to get back at him, but it just, you have to, there are rules and you have to enforce them, and the whole team needs to know that regardless of your relationship with the coach and regardless of what you've done for the team, you do things like this, you get fined. It was similar like with Victor Osimhen, right? Although I think there was one occasion where we didn't find him, but for the most part, you do things like this, you get fined. Those are the rules. But it sounds like Mana's not happy, Conte's not happy. Who knows how much truth there is to that? I think what will be really telling is whether Lukaku returns by Tuesday, because that's when Conte is supposed to be back. I saw some reports saying that Conte wasn't happy because he had scheduled some, friendly training matches for Lukaku to play in, or I guess for whoever's not on international duty to play in, to kind of stay in shape during his week off. And there were reports. I think it was Il Mattino, so take it for what it is. That kind of suggested that Lukaku's tired of training matches. He just wants to play, which even if that's true, I wouldn't necessarily blame him. But I think we do need to see what happens. And to your point, I think we really do need to. I didn't even think of this until you messaged me about it yesterday, which is the mental aspect and the fact that he's still grieving. He's still dealing with the loss of his father. We saw how emotional he was, which was also why this was surprising, because he was so emotional after that goal against Verona, and he talked about the support of the club, and Conte talked about that in the post-match press conference as well. I believe his mother still lives in Belgium, so there was also a story that was the reason why he was kind of staying behind to spend some time with his mother. So I do want to not judge him too harshly, at least not yet. And then we'll see what happens. I mean, at the end of the day, if he were to go at the end of the season, that wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world, given how well Højlund's played. He's kind of replicated the play of Lukaku, but obviously he's much younger, much quicker now compared to Lukaku at this age. Lukaku has a pretty big salary. I think it's like €8.5 million a season. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to get rid of that salary. The only thing I don't like is if he misses the Milan match. And I know this is kind of the situation we've been in for a number of weeks, but we basically only have one striker. And so, I guess you can put other guys in that position, KDB or Alisson or whoever. But, we sold or loaned out Luca and Ambrosino. So Lukaku and Højlund are kind of the only guys. But so far, Højlund's been able to manage that load. So we'll see. I agree with you. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself with this, but I am kind of disappointed.
Listen, that's all that's valid. Like, again, don't know, but like if he Napoli told him to come back and he said no, listen, I understand you have these things going on, but that's also your job and your boss. You got to listen to your boss. If you don't, there's repercussions. Now, do I think like it needs to get blown out of proportion? No, but like you're right. You do something wrong, there are consequences. Give them a fine. If they do, I hope they don't even announce it. I do think, like I said, the Italian media is doing what the Italian media does, especially in our beautiful city of Naples, just blowing everything out of proportion. So, will we ever find out the true story? Honestly, I kind of hope not. I hope it's just water under the bridge. We all move on with our lives and we go fight on for the Scudetto.
Yeah. De Bruyne was asked about it too, I think, after the first friendly in the US, and I thought he handled it quite well too. He just kind of said, look, Lukaku's had a really difficult season with the injury and the loss of his father, and everything in Napoli kind of gets blown out of proportion, but he did it in a very professional way that didn't, it drives me nuts that the media would even ask a question like that to De Bruyne. That has nothing to do with the match that he had just played in. But yeah, let's hope that nothing comes of this. Very quickly, we have Milan next. Obviously, we talked about that. Any thoughts beyond like we just have to win this match? Because that's kind of how I feel.
I mean, yeah. Listen, if you tell me Napoli played like crap, but we win, I don't care. You just need 3 points. Napoli have won some slugfests in the past. The game against Lazio comes to mind. That was a very physical game, and Napoli came out on top. They beat us the first time around, but like I've said, Napoli at home the Maradona is a fortress, and the fans in Naples really step up when they need to step up, and I think that's going to happen. It's weird that they're playing on the day after Easter. Like, I know in our side of the world, the day after Easter isn't a big deal, but I know in Italy, it's a 2-day affair. So kind of weird that they're scheduled. I think Inter's playing on Easter, which is very weird.
Yeah, I don't know. This is the Pasquetta match. They call it Easter Monday. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess because maybe people are off, makes for a good kind of traditional thing to do. I'm very intrigued by two kind of pragmatic old heads going head to head in Conte and Allegri. And, what I would say is maybe don't plan for the most exhilarating match.
Yeah, I think. My father's gonna hate this game. That's all I know. It's gonna be such a chore watching.
Yeah, they might as well just play like half an hour, because I feel like both coaches are gonna be so careful to not concede early on. Like I was watching Milan's last match, and I swear the game plan from Milan in the first half was let's just get into the break at 0-0. And they ended up having to attack because they conceded, and they still went into the break 1-1. But it was like they were trying really hard, and like it's hard for me to, like, I get it, even though I would never approach a match this way. But it was kind of like, let's conserve our energy, almost like a NASCAR driver, just biding his time and then going for it kind of in the final couple laps or something. And it was like that approach with Allegri. It was like, let's just sit back, save our energy, and then we'll go at them in the second half. And they came out in the second half absolutely flying, popped a couple goals. I think they went up 3-1 and ended up winning that match 3-2. I think it was Torino, because Simeone scored and won the penalty and like made us love him.
My guy.
More. Yeah. So I think yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I think you put these two coaches together, and you're going to get a tactical battle, that's for sure, but you're probably not going to get a high scoring match.
Yeah. Listen, bet the over on Lubaka passes. That's my betting advice for that game. I do have a question though, considering, like you mentioned, Allegri and Conte and their styles. Why do the old heads hate Conte? Like my dad, I know Gianluca's dad. Like, why? Like, I know he coached Juventus, but like he's still at the end of the day a man from the South, the first man from the South to win a Scudetto with a Southern team. So that's pretty cool. But why? Like,
Honestly, it's hard for me to say. It's you would think I would expect the young heads hating him because he's not entertaining enough, and we don't have any attention span anymore. I mean, the my kids' generation is even worse. Like YouTube really messed up that generation. But I can see why they wouldn't like a coach like Conte or Allegri. Um, Maybe there's a little bit to do with the Napoli identity that we developed kind of during the Sadi years. But these guys are old
yeah,
enough to remember far before that, right? And yeah, ultimately winning. I think that's why for us, we don't care. Like winning is better than anything. I don't care how you do it. And if you think back to like the Mazzari original, stint, that wasn't exactly the most free flowing football either. It was kind of counterattacking, pragmatic stuff. So
but they're the underdogs then, so that was fun.
yeah, exactly. And maybe it's just Conte's kind of what I think it's probably most likely as I think about this more. It's the way Conte speaks in his press conferences, and he's always kind of sour, and he always seems to be blaming anybody but himself. Like doesn't seem to be taking any accountability. He has that reputation, right? Like we know it seems like knock on wood because I think he's actually going to stay for a third season, which is a really good thing for us. But that's something that few people predicted too. Like most people said, okay, yeah, he's signing a 3-year contract. He'll win the Scudetto within the first 2 years, and then he'll take off on a high note. And he keeps surprising us. We also thought he would really clash heads, or a lot of people thought he would really clash heads with De Laurentiis, and
I thought
that
so.
hasn't really happened. In fact, I think he's of all the roles that Conte plays, because this guy I think is a workaholic, and like the way he plans for matches, he's like popping up at Primavera matches and watching them too. He's going to every restaurant he can get to in Napoli. On top of all of that, I think one of his jobs has also kind of been like ADL's kind of press manager or PR person, I guess is the word I'm
Which is
looking for.
shocking.
Because ADL has never been more quiet, and that's worked out. Like this is what we've wanted. We've wanted him to be the owner, focus on building a new stadium, even though that's never ever going to happen or may never happen. Focus on getting rules changed. Like, by the way, something that I didn't put on the agenda, but it sounds like the league is actually going to change the financial rules to what ADL wanted in January. It just, when you put it to a vote that has to be unanimous amongst all the clubs, of course, they're not going to unanimously vote for something that benefits practically only Napoli. But now that the season's coming to an end, it looks like they will take into account clubs' cash balances when they work out these kind of employee ratios or whatever that cost us or that force us to have a limited transfer window in January. Those are the things that ADL should be focusing on, and not getting into the weeds about certain players and making stupid comments and being sexist and whatever else. And so I think Conte's even somehow found a way to be ADL's PR person, which is great too.
Yeah. No, listen, this is the happiest that I've been, and I think most Napoli fans have been with ADL. Like even if you loved him before we won, like everyone agreed he talked too much. He said things that a president of a club should never say. Borderline people should never say. But yeah, we haven't. The only time we heard from him last year was like when we won the Scudetto, which is that's what you want. Like he still did that stupid thing where he tries to be the front of the photo, and he even tried to take the trophy before Di Lorenzo kind of thing. But like, listen, when he's not annoying the shit out of you with all, sorry if I cursed. He's not annoying, with all these comments and all these stupid, silly tweets and saying silly things on the media. Like now it's funny. Now it's like, oh, he's so crazy, that guy. Now that he's not actively destroying his own reputation. So yeah, if anything, more impressive than winning a Scudetto in Naples is getting ADL to act like a normal person.
That's true. I mean, 3 other coaches won a Scudetto in Napoli. I don't think any coach has gotten him to behave himself. So I think that's a perfect. Yeah, I mean, Spalletti. Don't get me started with him. Like every interview that guy gives, he's got to bring it back up. It's like, dude, just move on. We've moved on. You move on now. You know, he only wears long sleeves at Juventus, by the way. But I think,
that was probably my favorite thing I made with after we beat them 2-1.
Remind me which one that one was. They're all
one. I put Napoli 2, Juventus 1, but I used his tattoo as the Napoli logo, and I put it to the song track. They Not Like Us.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, I think that is the. I'll see if I can send me that image and I'll throw it up on the screen when I edit the pod. But I think that's the perfect spot to wrap this one up. Very quickly before we do, anything happening with Tri-State for the Milan match?
It's a Monday and the day after Easter. Like I know my people. We can put out something, but like 3 people are gonna go. And also, Niz is usually closed on Mondays. Pizzatello. Hey, if you're in the Tri-State area, you want great pizza? Pizzatello. You can find we tag them all the time on Instagram stuff. Please go there. Not just because he's my friend. My mother, who doesn't care if anyone's my friend, loves their food. And if it was terrible, she would tell me. And she would not be quiet about it. She loves it. Go there, eat great pizza.
Absolutely. Nothing but love for our good friend Dennis. Okay, so that is where we'll leave it. Pete, as always, thank you for coming on and entertaining us all.
The pleasure's all mine, Joe. I love coming on here. And it's nice not to come on here after a loss for once.
Yeah, exactly. We can laugh. You're going to be the new international break guy. Since I would bring Gaetano on, but no one despises international breaks more than he does. So that probably wouldn't be a good idea. But if you want to find Pete's hilarious work, most of that is at @try_Napoli Club. But you can also get a hold of him at babysquid_1926. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can find me mostly on X at Joe_Fischetti5. But you can also find the podcast on all the usual social media platforms. And I will do my best to respond. Like I said, I'm planning to do an episode after the Milan match. I'm still trying to figure a few things out, but it might be, I'm not going to commit to it just yet, but it might be our first Forza Napoli pod live. So because it's a Monday and I'm not working, we might go on right after that match ends. So keep an eye out on the social media channels for that, and I'll make sure to post some stuff if we do figure out how to go live. But until next time, I'm Joe Fischetti. Forza Napoli sempre.